Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. Today we're going to be talking to Winston Templet. He is the founder of the Real Estate Template and a real estate developer who has done hundreds of deals over his career. He's also a multi-million dollar real estate investor, and we're going to be going deep and sharing tips on how to develop real estate and how you can get started with your first real estate development project. As always, make sure you hit the links in the description below. And if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button because this is the show for you. We'll see you on the inside. Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs. Winston, thank you so much for coming on the show and appreciate you being here.
Oliver, I appreciate the invite and I appreciate the opportunity to come in, share my story, share a little bit about my life, and maybe open some people's eyes on what real estate investing is all about and how anybody can do it if they just have the right mindset.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a great spot to start is, I know you come from, as you say, come from nothing, very humble beginnings, and you've built a very large real estate portfolio, a real estate empire. So why don't you just run us just kind of briefly through your backstory and we can kind of go from there.
Okay, so when I say I come from nothing, I'm 56 years old, grew up in the 70s, and my dad's a veteran and came back from war with some issues and grew up in a fairly abusive home. And according to today's standards, they'd probably be under the jail. But you come through all that adversity and stuff that you experience in life. And I left home when I was 17. I graduated high school not being able to read. And I learned to read when I was 30 years old. But I started my first business when I was 24. I started a service company that I sold in 2019. I was running about 72 service vans, and we serviced a little bit over 700 restaurants in Nashville, Tennessee. And I started my real estate career in 2006 and have just hung real tight in the real estate the whole time. And now we got, just under 300 properties that we own. And, we own a couple of neighborhoods and apartment complex, stuff like that. We do a lot of construction. So I do a lot of land development deals. So I like to buy the land and then develop it because land prices are high, and you go out there and try and buy a good deal at market value. You pay too much and the land cost is too much to build on it and make any money. So I like to buy the land. I like to do the development myself. And then after we get the land development deal done, pass through the city planning and zoning and stuff and get it rezoned, then we'll come in and we'll build the project out. So that's it in a nutshell. We own a property management company. So we do all of our property management in-house. We do all of our service pretty much in-house, and we just run a really tight group of people.
I love that. What a cool story. I mean, the fact that you didn't learn to read till you were 30 is really unbelievable. And then it sounds like you went and built a really successful home services company. What type of company was that?
So I serviced restaurants. So all I did was what was in restaurants, but I did air conditioning, refrigeration, food service equipment, general construction, plumbing. If it's in a restaurant, I fixed it. My goal was always, when I started the business, that I didn't want any competitor to ever have a reason to come into my business or the service company that I worked for and let them come in and be able to try and steal it from me. So, if they had a hole in the parking lot, I was the guy hiring the asphalt company to come fix the hole. I didn't let the store itself do it. I just said, I'll take care of it for you. I won't bill you for it. And it was just my way of, I give back to them a little bit, but also keep anybody from coming in and saying, hey, give us a shot at your business.
Yeah, no, I love that. And then, so you transitioned into real estate. When you first got in the game, did you go straight into development? Were you doing flips? What kind of deals were you starting with?
No, I had absolutely no interest in real estate. And I had a guy that worked for me that was a sales guy, and he went into real estate as just a broker, well, not a broker, but just an agent. And when he went in, he kept calling me about this trailer park he wanted me to buy. And I said, man, I'm not buying no trailer park. I said, I don't want to do that. This is what I do. He said, man, there's synergy in that. I had to go look up the word synergy because I know what it meant. So once I realized it and I started doing it, he kept on my behind for about a year, and I wound up buying that trailer park. So my very first real estate deal was a trailer park, 26 units. And I held that trailer park until 2 years ago. I sold it, but we held it all that time. And it always was a cash cow and just always been fairly successful. I made a few bad decisions in the years, but very few.
Yeah, very cool. So I wanna definitely go deep with you on real estate and kind of, the things you've done and the strategies you're using. Um, but why don't we just start with like where the market is now and kind of where you see the big opportunities at?
Well, I'm looking now at maybe interest rates dropping a little bit. I think that for me in the market, I'm looking at deals to try and buy. But as I'm looking at deals that I can buy, I'm just struggling. I'm not going to buy something that doesn't cash flow. I'm not going to buy something that's not the deal that I want, the deal that I'm searching for, just to get a deal. That is not what we do. So if the numbers don't make sense, I stay away from it. I teach classes on with people that the numbers are everything. The numbers have to make sense. I need my land costs around 10%. I need my land costs when I'm building a home with all the underground utilities and the roads put in to be under 20 to 25%. 25% is my absolute maximum I can be on that to be able to build and make any money. Now I hold almost every single thing that I've built. There's very few. I think I've sold maybe 5 houses the whole time I've been in a business that I built. Typically, if it turns into a $500,000 house because it's a nice lot, I won't keep it. I'll sell it because I can't make the return on investment with that $500,000 house. But I try to stick them under 300,000 or so, and then I live off of a little bit of cash flow. I live off of appreciation. Our market right now is still appreciating about 9% a year in Nashville, so we still got good appreciation here. And then you get your depreciation, so you're not paying any. I don't really hardly pay any taxes ever, but I do that because of my depreciation. And then what little bit I got, I'm leveraged about 23% of my portfolio. So that 23% that I'm leveraged, I get the principal reduction off of that. So, all that adds up, one on top of the other, on top of the other, of getting the money. So that is the whole method of what I'm pushing and what I'm trying to do.
Mm. No, I love that. That's a great model. And so how do you go about like identifying deals?
So I will, if I find most of my deals. Very rarely does somebody bring me a deal. If I'm driving down the road and I see a piece of property with grass growing up, I'll come back to my office. I'll start looking up who owns it. I'll send them a letter. I'll call them. If I can find them on Facebook, I will reach out to them on Facebook. And it's just shocking how many people, if they're having to maintain it, they just don't want to go through the trouble of listing it. They don't want to go through the trouble of a lot of stuff, and they'll just sell it to me. Then I do the same thing with houses. If I see the grass growing up on a house and I notice the meter is not in the meter base, they got it pulled, or there's no electricity, no activity for a few weeks or a month, I may reach out to that homeowner also and try and find out, especially if I find out that they live in a different state. So then you start working that. I'm getting some people that have called me over the last year because their notice went up and they just can't cash flow it. They can't make the ends meet. They're about to lose it, and we've made some good buys on that. I'm not the guy that go out and lowball somebody on something. I want to be able to stand in front of my mirror every morning and shave and not want to cut my throat because I can't stand the guy I look at. So, I want to operate with a huge amount of integrity and know that I'm not cheating somebody else out of a deal, but I'm also not losing either, and protecting both sides of that. But most of my deals are identified that way. We will get on MLS sometimes and run numbers and just see if we can find something that makes sense for us and with the numbers, and that works out sometimes, but not near as much as what I can produce myself. And for the last, I would say since 2016, I've found that I can do a land development deal and I can build, and I can, without exception, I have never not been able to pull 100% of my investment back out of the deal and have an infinite return. So I love infinite investing, and most of what we deal with will give us that ability whenever we finish to pull 100% of our money out, have nothing invested in a deal, still make cash flow, principal reduction, make appreciation, and get my depreciation off all of it. So that is our goal ultimately for a deal, is to be in it with no money.
That's amazing. And I definitely want to break down that whole process. But what I'm hearing you say is you're essentially driving for dollars. You're driving around, you're finding properties that maybe look like they need a little TLC. Maybe they're dilapidated, like you said, the weeds are overgrowing, things like that. And then you're contacting the homeowners direct, maybe skip tracing, sending mail pieces, stalking them on social media, all that kind of stuff. And then what is the conversation like? Are you just direct going for the I'd like to buy your house? And then how are you kind of figuring your offer price? Hey there, I just have a quick favor to ask. If you're getting value from Founders Club and you're watching on YouTube, just give us a like, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. These things are free to do, and it really helps the channel. And it also helps us be able to bring better guests for you in the future. Now back to the episode.
I'm pretty much direct on how on buying it. I don't, if you listen to any of my content, I'm just straightforward in everything that I do. It just is what it is. And, it's basically, are you interested in selling? If they say, yeah, I'm interested in selling, how much will you give me? I'll break down the numbers. And, right now, basically, it's hard to do that because in order to cash flow something now, you got to make about 1% of whatever the purchase price is in rent. If you can't do that, if you pay $200,000 for a house and you can get $2,000 a month in rent, you're barely cash flowing positive. If anything, if you had 8.5% interest, it's just killing us. So trying to watch out for that is a big deal. Now I bought an apartment complex one time when I was doing an eviction. I bought that in 2019, and it was a very rough apartment complex. So we went in and bought it, and then we put about 2.4 million in rehabs in it, and got it leased back up, and was able to pull all my money out. So I had no money invested in that. And then there was a neighborhood behind it of 41 houses. So I contacted that owner of the neighborhood because it was built in 2011, but it wasn't being managed properly. So they were just having just a bunch of garbage, and it was turning into just a really horrible project. So I called them up and asked them if they would sell, and it took them a couple of years, but a couple of years later, they sold me that neighborhood of 41 houses. So I bought that neighborhood, and after I bought that neighborhood, then the guy contacted me again, and he said, I got another neighborhood I want to sell. It's got 57 houses in it. So I bought that neighborhood of 57 houses. And, they turn out to be just ridiculous great returns on investment with that.
Mm.
And
Okay.
a lot of it is word of mouth. I mean, in the city that we live in, we get a lot of people that know who we are, and they contact me direct if they want to sell. The city, if they see something going on, they'll let me know what's going on. Say, hey, we got this property that needs to be bought. If you want to buy it, we're going to wind up trying to take it from them eventually, but we can't do it yet. So I'll contact them, and most of the time, it's a pretty successful deal. So relationships with different people in the community, relationships with the city officials, relationships with the county officials, and people like that. It goes a lot further than what people think it does. And it's not bribing anybody. It's just having a conversation. I mean, this is what we do. And in our city, if I get an opportunity to buy a house that's run down, I'm going to tear that house down and I'm going to build a brand new house there. But I got more than 50, 60 houses in this city that I own, and it's a small city. So every house I buy and tear down and put a new house up, it doesn't just give me the money for that house. It increases my property value on every other house I own in the city. So I'm working it all at the same time. And in some areas, like where I bought the neighborhood, buying a neighborhood increased the value of my apartment complex because now I got rid of all of the garbage and I cleaned it up, and it's a good neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood, actually. And it just changes the whole dynamics of everything going on within that city. And that's a completely different city than what I live in. But we have a tremendous relationship with the government officials over there also. And the city that we bought the 57 houses in is the same. We build relationships, and they understand that we're going to come in and we're going to improve that city. We're not just going in there to make a dollar. We're going to go in there and make a difference. And that's
very cool.
That is a big deal.
Yeah, you're playing the long game on that one for sure.
Yeah, we're not trying to, it's not a get rich quick thing. It's a get rich over time. And, we currently sit on a little bit over 50 million in assets that we got. And, I started from nothing. I've been able to do that. And I could do a lot more with everything. But we do what we want to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And one thing that you said that really caught my ear was infinite returns. I think that, one thing we like on the show here is infinite returns. So why don't you break down a little bit about your process and how you're able to do that?
Okay. How about I do it with just, I got a project I just finished with five different lots. So I bought a piece of land, and it had a double wide trailer on it, and it was falling apart. So I went and tore the double wide trailer down, and then I bought a piece of land next to it that had a double wide trailer or a single wide trailer and a house on it. So I bought that, And then there was a piece of land next to that that had another junky trailer on it. And everything else on the road was nice. That was the only thing that was bad was those 3 lots. And in buying all 3 lots, I had about $100,000 in the purchase price. And then I own my own equipment, so I tore it all down myself. I did it on weekends and stuff. I didn't pay somebody to do it. Now, is that labor free? I look at it as free, but it's not free. I mean, if I paid somebody to do it, it probably would have cost me another $25,000 to tear all those down. But so I look at my labor cost or my cost in the land at 100 grand, and I split it up into 5 tracts. So I started off and I did 4 1-acre tracts and 1 6-acre tract. And on the 4 1-acre tracts, I put a single family house, 1,170 square feet. I paid about $110,000 to build it and putting about $20,000 on the land cost. So I had, about $115,000 in the project. They appraised at 197 when I did it. Now they appraised at 300. This was several years back. But so I pulled all my money out of them, and I still was able to cash flow the deal. I was still able, so I didn't have any money in it, and I'm still making not a lot of money, just a few $300-400 a month. Now we make a whole lot more money because rents have went up so much over the last 4 years. But with that being said, I got nothing invested in it, and I'm making minimal. Let's say I'm making $5,000 a year, $4,000 a year on my cash flow. I'm not going to pay any bills with that. I'm not going to pay a lot of stuff with that, but that's a little bit, and that's per piece of land. Also, that's not just one. But you got that $200,000 house in 2021. They were appreciating almost 20%. So now you're going up $40,000 in value. Okay, that's blowing your cash flow out of the water. Now, a lot of people don't want to assume appreciation, but I look at appreciation. If I look at this area right here over the last 10 years, it's appreciating at about 8 to 10%, somewhere up in there is what they say. If you go over the last 50 years, we got 5% over a 50-year period of time. Okay, I can at least throw 5% in there. Surely, if it's averaged at over 50 years, and at the rate our government is printing money, I don't see appreciation going down at all. I think it's going to continue to go up because the value of the dollar is just dropping all the time. So that appreciation is always going to be there for me in my eyes. I mean, we may hit a year that we get low appreciation at 3%, but I'm looking at the money machine is still printing. So we're going to keep on doing that. And then you don't get a whole lot off of your depreciation, but 3.6% off of your income you get. That's pretty cool. And my principal reduction may only be $4,000 or $5,000 a year, but that's another $4,000 or $5,000 a year. So you got nothing invested in this deal, and you're making, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year off of the deal, still with not a penny invested in it. And we just rinse and repeat. We do the same thing. So I built the same exact house with a different roof line on the first 4 lots. And I didn't know what I was going to do with the 6-acre tract. So I backed up and I sat on it for a year because I bought the apartment complex in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, which is about 2 hours from me. I spent a year over there rehabbing that apartment complex. And I did all that myself. So I stayed over there and managed that project for a year. And when I came back home, I went back to looking at the 6 acres, and I said, okay. So I contacted the city. I said, would y'all support me on me putting 5 duplexes in there? And they said, yeah, we'll support that. So we went in and I put I had about 1.9 million in the construction cost of the 5 duplexes. So I got 10 units for 1.9 million. They appraised for like 1 or 2.8 million. So I pulled I didn't pull any extra money out. I pulled just what I had invested in the deal back out of the deal. So now I got nothing invested in it. We're still making about $7,000, $8,000 a month in cash flow. That's positive. And we got the houses now. The 4 houses have been in there for a couple of years at that particular point in time. And then I put the duplexes in there, and it's just crazy. It was all off of a basic $100,000 investment for land. And then you come in with the development, let the development pay its own way.
Yeah. So just to break that down a little bit, so you bought this 6-acre parcel, and it was 100 grand.
So there was about 9 acres total and everything, 9 or 10 acres total, because I had 4 1-acre tracts and 1 6.5 acre, something like that, 6 point something acres.
Got it. And then the 6 acres that you sat on, you were able to put 5 duplexes on. The construction costs on that were about 1.8, and then you were able to appraise them at 2.8, and then refinance all your money back out. Is that kind of the play?
So if you're going to do that type of a deal, if you borrow the money and you do a construction loan, they're not going to let you cash out refi immediately. They're going to make you wait a year. So what I do is I always build with cash. And I
Okay.
just finished a duplex that I just built. And what I did was I pulled the money out of another house that I already owned that I didn't have any debt on. And I used that money to build a duplex, because if I wanted to pull the money out of the duplex, I wanted to be able to pull it out. And I didn't want somebody to say, well, you can't pull it out yet, you got to wait. So I built it with cash from a different project.
Okay, smart. Okay, cool. And then, so for someone that wanted to do this, let's say to start, what would be the blueprint for someone to get into a project like that?
I think you first got to identify a piece of land. It doesn't have to be the best piece of land. And everybody, I think the mindset people have is I might live there. You can't have that mindset when we're investing. The first house I ever built, I told my wife, I came into the office one morning. I told her, she wasn't my wife at the time. I told her, I said, I'm not finding anything that makes sense with the numbers. I said, find me a piece of land. I'm going to buy a piece of land and I'm going to build a house. And she said, you're going to build a house? I said, yeah. She said, for what? I said, for the experience. And she said, but what are you going to make off of the house? I said, I don't have any idea. I said, I just don't want to lose any money off of the house. And she found me the crappiest lot. It was the last house in a subdivision. And it was a subdivision that was 20 years old. So every other house had been built for 20 years, but this one lot. So she identified it, and it was $6,000. So I went to the city and I talked to the city. I said, look, I can't get far enough off of the road to meet the setbacks. Can y'all give me a variance on it? And they said, yeah, we'll give you a variance. So then I bought the land. And then I went to the city, I got a variance, and we start construction. When the neighbors both come out on each side, they're all mad. They said, wait up, you can't build a house on this right here. It's too close to the road. I said, I got a variance on it. There was a sign up here. You should have went to the meeting. So we built that house, and that house I had, I don't know, maybe 125,000 or so on it. We sold it for like 240. And, that was my first build. And it was on a really crappy piece of land, but it was in a good area. It wasn't the best piece of land. So it's not about that. So I think the first thing to do is identify that piece of land and make sure that when you're buying the raw land, you're somewhere 8 to 10% of the finished product or the finished value of the house. And then definitely whenever you're coming in and you're going to put your driveway in, and you're going to put your underground sewer and your underground water or septic, whatever you're going to use on that, then you got to put your underground utilities, that all of that, you really want to try and keep it under 20%. And when I said 25% is the hard number, 25% is the absolute hard number. When you start getting over that, you're going to lose money. You're not going to make the profit you want. You're probably still going to have money in the deal, and it's not going to give you the return you want. In the end, when you add principal reduction, cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, your numbers will still be 30% probably. But if I'm going to look at all those numbers, I don't want a 30% return. I mean, I'm not going to invest for a 30% return, even though it's a true return. If I'm going to do that, I want 70% at least. I mean, I'm not going to say I wouldn't do a 70% deal, but I don't think I would do a 50%. If I'm looking at all that together and I can only make 50% return, I probably won't do the deal. So and that's what it is, identifying what are you willing to accept and not accept. Now, maybe somebody just starting out would be like I was. I said, all I want to do is I want the experience of building a house. If I don't make any money, I don't care, as long as I don't lose any money. And that was my mindset on it. I didn't know what I was going to experience. I knew that I got a construction company I own. I knew what I could do, and I didn't build houses. I owned a service company. I had all the licenses to build houses, but I owned a service company. So I was a service guy, not a construction guy. And so we just got in there and did it, and it was just simple. I mean, it was just so easy. It flowed well together. And, I'm not saying somebody with no experience doesn't need to have somebody to stand with them to do this. I mean, everybody's got friends that do construction, friends that do building, friends that do stuff that can help them, nurture them through the process of doing their first or second or third deal to get where they're comfortable with what they're dealing with. I don't think anybody should go out there and take a ton of risk. I'm not in that game at all. I look at everything as I'm going to know what my worst case scenario is. What is the worst case scenario of this deal? And what is my best case scenario? If I can't accept the worst case scenario, I'm not going to do the deal at all.
Smart. Yeah. So, so what I'm hearing is you want to be 8 to 10% cost of land when you're looking to do a real estate development project. And then you're all in with the sewer, power, permitting, everything. 20% is ideal. 25% is your max. And then how else are you underwriting? Anything else that you're building in
No, so
to
I don't add the permitting cost in that 20%. It's just whenever I get ready to build the house and I have everything on that land except for the building of the house where I'm at. And that's really what I'm looking at as far as that is concerned.
Okay. And then how much are you allocating towards actually building of the house?
So I'm still building at about $105 a square foot. And there's going to be a lot of people listening saying you are out your mind to be able to build at that. But that's what we're building at. I just finished the house a month ago. And we're still hitting those numbers. And I know if you're in California, you're probably 375, 400 square foot when you're building. I mean, it's not cheap, but it also you ain't selling that house for 300,000 either. You're selling that house for 4 million. So you really got to look at those numbers. And I want, if I can come out and I can pull a note on it and I can make, let's just say we're not pulling a note on it. We're just looking at what our return on investment is. If I can pull an 8% return on investment, I will probably go ahead and do the deal, because when I throw everything else in it right now with interest rates where they are, if I'm making 8%, then in the end, I can easily get I can easily go pull all my money out and still be able to do an infinite return like that. Now, if I'm getting down to 6% or something like that, I'm looking at them numbers pretty hard and saying, okay, what in the world about this deal do you want so bad that you're willing to invest at 6%? Now, I'm looking at 6% return on investment. We're still, and people will look at that and say, well, we can get that in the market. I'm not talking about just 6% I'm talking 6% cash, not
Cash on
appreciation,
cash.
depreciation. Yeah, I'm not talking about appreciation, depreciation, or principal reduction. So that's going to be a whole lot more. But if I can hit that 8%, that usually puts me where I know I can pull all my money back out of it probably and still make that deal cash flow.
Love that. Yeah, I like how focused you are on the numbers. And in terms of like percentages, where would you put the construction costs and then anything else that you're adding in after that 20% of the land and the getting the land ready?
So my construction costs with the land and all is usually, I don't know that I've ever done anything. Well, there's one duplex that I built that the cost of it was too high on everything for me, but I built it because it was next to my mayor's house, and I had a point to prove. So I did it as a more for a whole different tactic, I guess I would say. And so that would be the only project that I've ever built that I did not make the return that I wanted to make. But I still got a good I was still able to pull almost all of my money out and still be able to cash flow without a problem. I still got a little bit of money invested in it, but it was well worth it for the deal.
Very cool. Yeah, no, that's funny about the mayor's house deal.
Yeah, I can tell you about that deal if you want to know about the deal, but it might not be what you want on your show.
It sounded like that was more, like you said, for a different reason.
Yeah, he was attacking my wife real hard, and so I created. His name was Tommy Long, so I created me an LLC called FU Tommy Long LLC, and then I own a dumpster company, so I put my dumpsters around the city and lettered them all FU Tommy Long LLC, and then I bought the lot next to his house in my FU Tommy Long LLC, and then I built a duplex that looks like 3 single wide trailers pushed together. So It had a different purpose to it. Maybe not the best. I don't know. You could cut that out.
No, that's funny. That's hilarious. So in terms of funding these projects, it sounds like you're well capitalized and you're able to fund most of these deals yourself. What would you say to someone that doesn't have the funds to do this themselves, or maybe what you did early on in your career before you were well capitalized?
So when I started real estate, I'd owned my company for 16 years already. So I've always had the cash to do it.
Okay.
That wasn't a problem. I know. So I had a guy out of Arizona with Capital Fund One that contacted me one time, and I did a podcast with him, and I told him, I said, I'll push you, but I want to try you first. I said, let me do a deal that I can do, and I'm going to use your money instead of my money to do the deal, and we'll see how everything goes. So I brought him in. We did the loan, and I funded the entire project with their money. Now I already owned the land, so I did not fund the land with the money. I owned the land already, but they gave me enough money to completely build the house. After the house was built, I did a cash out refi, paid them back all their money, and it was done. I mean, there's hard money investors out there that can help you with that. There's grandma, there's grandpa that can help you. It's not as hard. I mean, we do some numbers in classes and stuff that, it's pretty easy to get some people that will help you get that deal done, as long as the deal makes sense. There's so many people out there that are making 6-7%, or maybe they got money in an account right now at their bank that they're making 3% off of, 2% off of. And, you offer them a 10% return. They think that is gold. And for you, it's a good, everybody looks, I'm not paying 10%. I would rather pay 10% for the money and do a deal than say, I'm not paying 10%. And 2 years later, you still have never done a deal. So the cost of money is the cost of money. Can you still make your numbers work at the cost of money that it is? And it is hard. I mean, it's hard. I was coaching with a guy not long ago, and we were talking about, he didn't even have the 10% to put down. And I said, well, you need to put 20% down, not 10%. He said, I don't have any of that. I said, what do you do? And he worked on cars. I said, why don't you buy a car? You got enough money to buy an old raggedy car? He said, yeah. I said, buy a car, fix it up a little bit, see if you can double your money on a car. And he did that, and he did it really quick. And then he bought another car and another car. Before you know it, he had enough money to put the 20% down on the house, and he's still buying cars and getting cash flow off of the cars. And there's, what do we do? What are you willing to work nights and weekends? Are you willing to take a second job? How, if I'm 25 years old, what am I willing to sacrifice for success when I'm 40 years old? And my answer to that is everything. And I could go through my life story and tell you exactly how I've done that exact same thing over and over. There's been numerous times my wife and I have flown to Florida or wherever on vacation, and a day after being there, me hop on a plane, come back home because work demanded it. And that was just what it was. And there was no discussion about it. I'm coming home. And, so that might be why I'm divorced. I don't know. So, but it's, what are you willing to do for that? It's a temporary sacrifice for something that can last you the rest of your life. I mean, we're bringing in close to $300,000 a month in income right now. I mean, what are you willing to do to bring in $300,000 a month worth of income? And that's whether I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm on a beach somewhere, no matter what I'm doing. I mean, as far as my operation in my business right now, I don't have to be here at all. If I didn't show up for the next 24 months, nothing would skip a beat. It would just keep on going. And that's setting it up properly. That's managing it like it needs to be managed.
Yeah,
hiring the right people, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. So on that note, why don't you walk us through like the day of a real estate developer? Like what does your day look like, or what do you recommend for people that want to get into real estate development? Like what should their day look like?
So let me step back, and I'm not going to talk about what my day looks like now, because it really, I mean, I have people that do everything for me now. Not that I come into this office every single day and work, but typically I'm piddling with something. I'm working on a podcast. I'm working on a class that I'm teaching. I'm doing coaching or something like that. I'm not working in my business. I work on my business from time to time, but not in my business. But when I started out, I would, you buy the land, and I hire somebody to come in, and maybe they're going to do the footings for the foundation, or maybe they're going to do the foundation at the same time. And I would show up, and I don't stay there with them to manage that. I hire quality people. I'm not looking for somebody, one man in a truck that needs their money at the end of the day so that they can pay their workers to do what they want to do. I want somebody I can pay you. If you're going to do a 1 week job for me, or a 10-day job for me, I need you to be able to go work for 10 days and not get a draw from me. That way I know I got a quality company. Let them do the job. So I set them up, and I will show up there once every day, maybe twice every day, do a drive-by, look at it, talk to them for a minute, let them know I'm there supporting them, and let them know they're not in it by themselves. And then that's it. So the slab gets in, and when I go in and I got somebody coming in to do my frame, and I'm gonna do the same exact thing. I'm gonna show up once or twice a day, and we're just gonna look at it. We're gonna talk about it. They're gonna know that I at least show up and look at it. Now, I knew what I was doing when I started doing it. So if you don't know what you're doing, you might want to partner with somebody and have somebody come in and let them walk the house with you. Walk what you're building. Look at the framing, look at everything. Say, I like this, I don't like that. Verify everything is correct. And you just do that same process throughout the complete construction of the house. I don't show up and sweep the floor. I don't show up and do anything. I mean, if the job site's dirty when I get there, I'll tell them, hey, I'm going to be back tomorrow. I need that job site to be clean because I don't want somebody stepping on a nail. I don't want somebody tripping over a water bottles are my worst thing. I hate people bringing water bottles on their job because they finish drinking them. They put the lid on it and you fall on a water bottle because it's round and you trip and break a leg. It's just not worth the liability. So I pay attention to stuff like that. And I run that job site like that, saying, hey, we need to get it clean. Let's do that. And then as we go through, I'm measuring stuff out. I got my tape measure. I'm looking at different things. Hey, man, this is going to be off. You know, we had the duplex that we just did, and when the plumbers came in, the toilets were. When I measured the drains for the toilets, I said these toilets are going to be too far off the wall. They, instead of coming on the inside portion of the wall from their measurements, they went from the outside portion of the wall, and it just did not work. So they were off 3.5 inches on the distance from the toilet. So what they had to do is they had to jackhammer a little bit of it up. They had to put a flange in it to offset that 3.5 inches and put that toilet against the wall like it needed to be. So you catch that stuff in advance if you can. And then they fix it, and it's no big deal after they fix it. And because everything I build, I hold. I like, if I can build on slab, I build on slab. And when I build on slab, I use stained concrete. So I don't put carpet in, I don't put hardwood floorings in, I don't put VCT. I do everything on a stained concrete floor if it's a rental property, because number one, the tenants, I don't have any tenants that don't like it. All of them like the floors. They can clean the floors easy. If they bring an animal in there and the animal uses the bathroom on the floor, it doesn't mess the floor up. I can use an epoxy sealer on top of it that I can activate that sealer 2 years down the road. And basically that sealer will get rid of all the scratches and everything's like it was when it was brand new. So we have found these little small methods that we can come in and do things a certain way that in the end, it saves a ton of money 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. It's the same thing, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. But that is the whole process all the way through. I mean, I'm not there, babysitting anybody. I'm just there to do a drive-by. And if I miss a couple of days on that drive-by, I don't lose any sleep over that. I show up when I can show up and look at it. And I got people that work for me that enjoy doing it too. So they'll go by and I'm like, what are you doing here? I just come by and check. Like, get back to the office and work, but everybody, I got a whole company of people. Now when I say I got a whole company, I got 5 employees. That's my entire company is 5 employees. So I don't have a bunch of employees that work for me. We run a very streamlined business, and I subcontract everything out. So you say, well, Winston, you're a contractor. You can do this, you can do that. Other people can't do that. I subcontract everything out. I do my service work for my properties in-house. All construction is done out of house.
Nice.
So anybody can do what I do. Anybody.
Yeah. And so on that note of kind of like managing the project and managing the people, how are you, managing the challenges, the setbacks, and the problems that come up that inevitably happen on every real estate development, every flip, all those types of things?
I'm going to tell you, I don't have a whole lot of problems. I rarely, I mean, we got, probably 600 people total, if you're doing husband and wives and stuff like that are renting from us. And I have no issues. I can tell you none of the tenants know my name. I don't deal with the tenants ever. I mean, not one time a year do I deal with a tenant at all. My office takes care of everything. What we do is we use a program. I use Rent Manager. We've used Buildium and Appfolio and other programs also, but I use Rent Manager. And we don't have a phone in our office besides our cell phones. So nobody calls my office for anything. Everybody does a work order through Rent Manager. So it all comes electronically. It emails me. It emails my service guys. My service guy picks it up. It lets me know he picked it up. I know that's handled. I'm out of it at that point. When they got an emergency, they put it in there. He responds to it. If he don't respond to it, one of us out of the 5 of us, one of us will pick it up and make sure that it gets handled. If I see that it comes through and it hits me a second alert, I'm gonna call somebody and say, hey man, why is this coming to me again? So we're running it real tight. So if the tenants have a work order, I don't take any work orders over the phone. They can only do a work order through the computer. And I do that to protect them and to protect myself also, because I don't want any time for a tenant to say, well, we've been asking them to fix this for a month. Well, we don't take any phone calls from you. So show me in the computer on
now
the
everything's
portal.
in writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, every single thing we do is in writing. There's nothing at all we do. So my technician shows up on it. We have the ability to clock in. The tenant can see that we clocked in on the job site. They can see that we're there. We leave. They can see that we left. The tenant then signs off on that project once it's done. So they're telling me at the end of the day, hey, that project is nice, it's done, or no, it's not. We need something else done to it. So it is just a complete process. It's all done electronically, and it's not really taking up anybody's time. And it just makes it run smooth. If I hear so many people, Tennyson told us, Tennyson told us, and Tennyson told us, but once you get that right system down, the Tennyson told us are not a big deal. Now I don't rent to somebody with less than a 630 credit score, period. I don't. And I know everybody's got a problem and everybody's got a reason why they might have a 500 credit score, but in my experience as a landlord, people with a 600 and above credit score, 630 and above credit score, those people are wanting to buy a house eventually. They are concerned about their credit. They're going to take care of the property better. They're going to call you when they got something. They're not going to just go in and trash something. If you rent to somebody with a 400 credit score, you got problems. I'm not going to say every single time, but I'm going to tell you the large majority of the time you're going to have a problem because they don't care. What you going to do? Mess up my credit? It's already messed up. So
Okay.
I know that may not sound like I get bashed about that when I say it on my channel, but it's just where we are as a business, and that's just what it is. We were arguing with somebody the other day on a podcast I did when I said if I got a tenant that puts a sheet up in their window, I'm not going to evict them, but I'm not going to renew their lease because I don't want sheets up on any windows in my houses. And I got beat up for that comment. But my comment is I got tenants that don't want to live next to somebody with a sheet on their windows. So they want to live in something nice, and it's just that is what we are. That is what we're producing. We're producing an extremely good product for everybody to live in that we're going to take care of. And when you call me with a service response, I'm going to probably be on that service response within an hour or two. We're going to be getting you taken care of. And it's just we run that type of a company, and we're that type of a management company for what we manage. Not only manage properties for myself, I don't manage for other people, but we are on top of what we do because our name is everything to us.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the takeaways there that I heard are you have a system, so everything's in writing. You're using Rent Manager for that, and you're only renting to people with a 630 and above credit score because that's your personal criteria as a landlord, and that sounds like that's working pretty well for you.
Yes, sir. So
And then
far.
what about managing the actual construction process? For that, are you just mainly doing those couple site visits every day, and that's how you're kind of mitigating problems and issues as they come up? Pardon the quick interruption, but if you're looking for a little extra help growing your real estate business, make sure you hit the link in the description below to book a one-on-one consulting session where I will personally help you take your real estate business to the next level. Over the last 15 years, I've grown a brokerage to over 1,000 agents in multiple states, consistently doing over $4 billion a year in sales. And we've been on the Inc. 500 5 times. I would love to personally help you reach your business goals and have the best year you've ever had. Book your session today. And now back to the podcast.
Yeah, we mitigate it like that. And then let's say the contractor submits a bid. Everything is done through our Rent Manager. Also on that, we track all expenses through that. Everything is detailed out because I want to be able to compare what my bill cost is for drywall today and what it was a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I want to see what's going on. If something comes up that's out of line, I want to know, okay, why is this price out of line? And my office staff is doing that. They're looking at, we got it broken down on what a percentage of this particular, what percentage of the total cost of a job is drywall. What percentage is framing? What percentage is flooring? What percentage is roofing? And we're looking at that, and we run that through a spreadsheet every time so that we can look at it and know if anything is off track. And if it's off track, I want to know why. And sometimes it's just the cost of stuff is more money, and ceramic tile may go up at a different rate than what a 2x4 goes up. So your flooring goes up on something where the other part doesn't. If I'm selling something, I'm using ceramic and hardwood in it if I'm going to sell a project. So I'm not doing concrete floor on something I sell. But so we're monitoring that pretty heavy. And then whenever the contractor submits his invoice and he needs me to pay him for something, then what I'm going to do, or she needs me to pay him, whomever it is, we're going to come in and we're going to go do a quick inspection on that job to make sure everything is done and we don't have any problems with anything. And if we got a problem, we just let them know and they get it taken care of, and we write the check after they get it taken care of. I don't want I do not pay anybody in advance for anything, nor would I recommend anybody to pay in advance. And that is a double-edged sword, because there's so many contractors that get burnt, and they don't want to work for people that don't want to give them money. And then there's so many homeowners and people like that get burnt, and they don't want to give people money in advance. So all I can say is, if you're new to it, you got to work through that somehow. But once you develop those relationships, it's not a problem. But it does take a minute to build those relationships if you're new. So you may have to do something outside the box with that. But I am extremely hesitant to give people money up front.
Okay. Even 50%, you just say you don't give them anything up front.
Even $1,000. I don't have, I couldn't tell you the last time anybody asked me for any money up front. Now, for my lumber package, when the lumber package comes in, usually the framers, I will order my own lumber package, and it will be sitting on a job site for them, so they don't have anything invested in that. And that's going to give them their nails. It's going to give them everything they need to do the construction. All they got is labor costs at that point in time. And so we can take a lot of the expenses out. I'm not looking for them to go roll out and drop $40,000 in lumber and then me not give them any money. I don't expect that from them, but I will buy the package myself. And I do that basically because I got relationships with the lumber yards here, and I get as good a price as the contractors get on that, because I am a contractor, I guess. But so I'm getting good prices on it. I can control it, and they're not having to come out with the money. I'm not paying markup for those products. Also, as a service guy and owning a service company, when I sold a part to a customer and I had to wait 30 days, 60 days, 90 days for my money, I wanted paid for that 30, 60, or 90 days that they were holding my money. So my markup on parts was in there. And I expect that as a business owner, I would expect that if I got somebody sitting out and holding their own money from me for an extended period of time, I would expect to have to pay extra for that money.
No, that makes total sense. And I think those are some really good tips in terms of how you're approaching it, how you're managing the team, how you're kind of vetting the team and getting good people on board, because obviously that's a big part of it. And then just to shift gears a little bit, let's talk about like permitting, working with the city, and kind of what your approach is to get that stuff done. Because I know that in certain places, San Diego included, getting permits can be a total nightmare, and dealing with the city and inspectors and all that. So what tips do you have in terms of how to approach that?
So where I live in Tennessee, I'm not struggling with what y'all are dealing with out there. And I talk to people all the time that tells me, it takes me 2 years to pull a permit. I don't understand that concept. Now I've dealt with Nashville, the city of Nashville, and I spent 4 years one time doing a land development deal in Nashville. It took me 4 years to get it approved. And that was me going back and forth. It was a condo development I was doing, and I wanted 7 units an acre. The first time I went in, they told me they would give me 4 units per acre. I backed off. I said, I'm not going to do it for 4 units per acre. And so I backed out the deal. Then the councilman called me back and said, why don't you just bring it back? So I bought some more land. So I said, well, I got to do more engineering because I bought another 8 acres. So I did the engineering on that. We submitted it, and they brought me up to 5 units per acre.
Okay.
So well, I'm not settling for that. I want 7 units per acre. So then I backed out, and I bought another piece of land next to that, another 8 acre tract next to it. So, and that had brought me up to 33 acres total that I had on this project. And the project cash flowed. It was a trailer park that I owned. So the project cash flowed. So I wasn't really worried about sitting on it. But then the councilman called me again, and he said, bring that deal back. I said, I'm not bringing it back for less than 7 units an acre. And if you can't tell me we're going to get that, I'm not going to pay the additional money on the engineering fees, because it's costing me $10,000 every time I bring it back to do anything. I don't want to do it. And he said, if planning and zoning won't pass it this time at 7 units an acre, he said, I got enough votes to override them in the city council. Which the cautionary part of that is, when you override the city council, you can bet you're going to have, or override planning and zoning, you can bet you're going to have problems with planning and zoning throughout that whole project, because they're not going to forget about it.
Yeah, they don't like that.
Yeah, but I did the engineering. We went back and planning and zoning passed it as the 7 units per acre that I was requesting, and the deal happened. That was a long, drawn out process. Took me 4 years. Now each phase of that process took me about 6 to 7 months to get it in front of the planning and zoning. Then I had a period of time that we waited, and then we brought it back in front of planning and zoning. Where I live about 15 miles outside of Nashville. So I'm
Okay.
about 15, 20 minutes from downtown Nashville. And if I needed to pull a permit today, I could walk down, I could go to the county. I could pull my impact fee permits from the county today. I could go tomorrow to my city that I'm in right here where I live or where I invest, and I can pull the permits for the construction tomorrow. So I can make it happen here for whatever I got to do. As long as I got a good set of blueprints, I can make it happen in 2 days. And the other cities that I
Wow.
invest in here, I can make it happen in 2 days also. Now for us, we can bring them. I don't have to have engineering drawings on a lot of stuff. I can just have any kind of drawing to work. When I got an apartment complex that I have slotted to build. It's a 60-unit apartment complex. I bought 3 pieces of land that I did. I got about 250,000 in the project right now, 280,000 in the project, and that's for the land cost and the engineering and the architectural engineering. So the engineering from my civil engineer probably took me about 8 months to get that done. He had to do a lot of stuff, had to deal with the state on a lot of stuff, took a lot of time. Then I hired an architectural engineer, and then that took probably another 6 or 7 months because he had to bring it to the fire board and he had to bring it to the city for approval. And it was a hurry up and wait thing. You draw the prints, then you got to wait a month to be able to get in front of the board for the board to approve what you're going to do. Then you got to do something else, and you got to wait a month to get in front of the board. So it takes time on that. But if you're borrowing the money to do it, you got to really look at what kind of a carrying cost you got. Because if you're borrowing money to do it and you're paying a $500, $1,000 a month on a note on something that you're sitting on, you got to add all that money. I mean, there's no money that ever comes out of your pocket into this project that you don't account for in the end. I mean, if you don't account for some of it, then what you're doing is you're lying to yourself and you're telling yourself you're making money when you're not making any money. Every single penny counts. Every single penny needs to be allocated, and it all needs to be covered. Even my labor, even though I just draw a weekly check. Even though I get that, I still need to charge, $50, $100 an hour, whatever I'm working on. I need to charge that off to that particular project so that I know if I'm not the one doing it and I'm paying an employee to do it, then that employee gets paid. And I need to look at what I'm paying them, not just that if I'm paying them $30 an hour, I need to look at that $30 an hour plus their benefit package, which is putting us closer to $60 or $70 an hour. So I need to look at all that. And that is something that I see that a lot of people will come in and they don't want to account for their labor. They don't want to account for somebody else's time. Kind of like what I was saying whenever I wasn't using my labor when I tore down the trailers. I didn't use that labor, but it's still labor. Can I throw it into the deal and still make money? I can. If I couldn't make money, what do I still do? Yeah, it's just my labor. I'll give my labor for free to make some money on the back end. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but at least I know exactly where I am on the deal. So I'm very cautious about that, and would ask everybody else to be cautious about that. Never not account for anything that you need to account for, and know your true numbers at the end, because that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah, I think that's the theme that keeps coming up, is the knowing your numbers, and I think that's hugely important. And I think you've given a lot of great advice today. What would you say to people that are looking to get into development for the first time? What would your advice be to them?
My advice would be to find somebody. There's so many people out there that do not want to share their knowledge. They don't, they're like, well, if I teach you how to do what I do, then that lowers my ability to do what I do. And I don't view it that way. And I think there's a lot of people that don't view it that way. I look at, there's so much housing shortage in our country right now. I can help anybody I want to help, and it doesn't matter. They're not coming into my pocket and hurting me. And you know what? If you can hurt me, then I'm not doing my job good enough. I need to be better, and I need to work harder to be better. And I viewed that when I owned my service company. At least 8 or 10 of my guys that worked for me through the years, I helped them start a service company. And I could tell you, through the 30 years of being in business, not one of those guys that I ever helped start their company ever was a competition to me. They were never a competitor. They would always stay away from anything I was working on. And they would call me if they were bidding, and then they thought I might be bidding a job. They would say, "Are you bidding a job?" And I would always tell them, "If you want to bid a job, bid a job." I said, "If I can't beat you, I can't beat you. That's not a problem." But they would never bid it. They would never come against me. They just didn't. And I think there's a lot of good people out there that respect that. But I think that if you're going to do the land development, a good engineer, number one, a good engineer will walk you through every phase of that project. My engineer will help me in any aspect that I need help. And he's way smarter than I am. So I know that I can trust him. So you can find a good engineer that will help you get that project through planning and zoning. They will tell you everything that they know. And my philosophy on that is give your engineer the room that they need to do their job. Don't come in and tell them what they're going to do. If the engineer says you're probably not going to get this through planning and zoning, and I would look at that and say, you know what, I'm probably not going to get that through planning and zoning because that's what he's telling me.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to go in and fight that and say, well, I'm going to do it. We got to take our pride out of it because our pride will kill us. Our pride will take away our profits. Our pride will make our lives miserable because we think we can do something that we got somebody that knows what you're going to do and not do, and we want to argue with them. And it does. There is no place for that. We don't, we don't need to have that kind of, I guess, bravado with us where we are almighty because we got the money. It doesn't need to be that way. It needs to be more that we need to be listening and attentive to what these people are telling us. I mean, they're professionals and we're hiring them because we trust them. It's like hiring an attorney and not listening to your attorney. Why did you hire them if you don't want to listen to them? So the engineers are the exact same way. And that's whether you got a civil engineer or architectural engineer, it's the same thing. I mean, this is what they do. And I like to hire an engineer that is very familiar with the city that I work with because planning and zoning is also familiar with that engineer. And when an engineer brings something in, they know that they're not trying to cheat you on a retention pond. He's not trying to blow smoke up your behind and tell you something that ain't true. He's giving you the information. The people in planning and zoning understand his integrity or her integrity, and they are not trying. They don't critique it as much. So I think that it's good to use good quality people. Don't try and shortchange yourself and hire the cheapest guy in the room because that is, I'm not going to say it never works, but it rarely comes out better.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great advice. And another thing I hear you say a lot is don't put out a shitty product. Like
Never.
put an end product out that you can be proud of, because at the end of the day, that's really how you win the game.
Yeah, there's not a thing I do that I would be embarrassed to put my name on. Nothing. And that same integrity goes through every aspect of anything that we do. I mean, there's just nothing that we do that we won't put our name on. And good, bad, or indifferent, we are exactly who we are, and that doesn't change. If I don't want to rent to you because you have a 400 credit score, I'm going to tell you I can't rent to you because you have a 400 credit score. And I'm not saying you're not a good person because I think there's a lot of great people with a 400 credit score. I'm saying that just does not work for me and my company.
Yeah.
And if I say I do a 630 credit score, then now I am bound by that 630 credit score because if I bring somebody in with a 500 credit score, guess what I got on my back now? The possibility of a lawsuit because now you're showing discrimination. So we got to protect ourselves from that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Very smart. One final question I like to wrap with is just in 60 seconds or less, what does it take to be a successful real estate developer?
I think what it takes to be a successful real estate development is a lot of dedication, hard work, consistency. Don't, stay on top of it. Don't think that it's going to run itself. And you're going to sacrifice a little bit of time if you're starting from scratch. You're going to sacrifice your family. You're going to sacrifice some money. You're going to sacrifice a little bit of time with your kids. You're going to sacrifice to do it. And as long as you're willing to do it now on the backside, you don't have to do it once you get into it and learn it all. You don't have to do near as much sacrificing, but there's a lot of sacrifice.
I love that. Well, Winston, I got to say it's been really educational. You've given us a lot of really great insight. For those that want to connect with you or learn more or attend one of your events, how do they connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram and TikTok are under Real Estate Templet. That's TEMPLET. And then my YouTube is under The Real Estate Templet. And,
Nice.
all our contents, the classes, we got a class coming up in September 20th, 21st, and 22nd here in Nashville, Tennessee. And, it's on there. Just click at it and look at it. We more than happy to have any of you people that want to come. We'd love to have them.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, everyone, you definitely want to follow this guy on Instagram and TikTok. His content is not only really educational, but it's really entertaining. It's no nonsense, and you'll definitely get a good laugh as well.
Do not take anything personal.
That's right. That's right. Well, I certainly appreciate you coming on. For those listening, make sure you check out the links in the description below. And as always, if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a
Oliver,
lot,
thank you.
Winston.
Oliver, thank you so much for inviting me on the show. I really appreciate it. Have had a great time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Have a great day.